I was born in Iran, the good Iran.
What year?
In 1960, during the Pahlavi dynasty. I was raised in Tehran, went to a Jewish school. We were exposed to all kinds of religions in our school. We had Baha'is, we had Christians, we had Muslims, we had Jews.
What is home? Yes, we have our homeland Israel, and yes, we have homes throughout the diaspora. But our current reality is complex. Israel's at war, and anti-Semitism is rising around the world. So what does that mean for us? What does that mean for this question of home? Join me, Izzy, as I speak with Israeli and diaspora Jewry to better understand this new complex reality and unpack where we put ourselves in this physical and spiritual war. This is the My Israel Narrative podcast. Hi everyone. Today we have the honor of sitting here with my dad, who very graciously agreed to come and speak a little bit mostly about conversations we've been having the past few months, and also just to share a little bit about what I think is a very interesting background that I actually don't think is spoken enough about publicly, which is just like the whole Iranian immigrant story and how they came to be. So, first, if you could just share, I obviously know, but for those that don't, what your upbringing was like, what it was like, where you grew up, what your family was like, anything you think people should know.
Right. By the way, thank you for having me.
So welcome.
The honor is mine. And I've been working really hard on this project, and it means a lot to you, and it means a lot to me, and I think it's a very worthy cause. And I would love to share my thoughts as well, because you grew up in our house, so I want to know where your feelings and thoughts come from, hopefully.
Exactly.
I was born in Iran, the good Iran. In
What year?
In 1960, during the Pahlavi dynasty, when Iran was all nice and good. By the way, most of Iran's population are nice people for most part. They're the most hospitable people, nicest people on earth, in my opinion. The stereotype of the stuff that we hear now is all due to the government, Iran's government, not the people. Most of the people of Iran are peaceful, loving, caring people. Anyway, having said enough about that, I was born in Tehran, Iran. My parents came from Isfahan, which is one of the oldest cities and used to be the capital of Iran in the 16th, 17th century. And probably the oldest history of Persian Jews in Iran comes from Isfahan, because when the Jews left Babylon after the destruction of the first temple, they came to Iran. They were looking for a place to live that resembled Jerusalem because of the agriculture, and Isfahan has the same exact kind of weather and as of Jerusalem. So they settled there first, and then they dispersed to other parts of Iran. And anyway, I was raised in Tehran, went to a Jewish school called Etefaq. We have all different religions and backgrounds in our school. So
Even though it was a Jewish school?
Yes. We studied Hebrew for 2 hours at the end of the day. We had longer hours than other schools. So we studied English, Hebrew, and Farsi all at the same time. So we were exposed to all kinds of religions in our school. We had Baha'is, we had Christians, we had Muslims, we had Jews, name it. And we all coexist very nicely, and religion was never a thing. We had Zoroastrians. We all coexisted together very nicely, and we understood each other's, religion, and respected each other. And in 1977, I decided to come to the United States a year before I graduated high school, due to the fact that, I had not done that. I had to be drafted into Army because it was mandatory back in Iran. It was a draft.
You're 18?
Yes, at 18, you had to go to the Army for 2 years. Everybody was supposed. So most of the Jewish people they send their sons out of the country, mostly for better education as well, And my intention wasn't to come and stay in the United States, it was to come study and go back. That's what most people did. So while I was here, the revolution happened back in Iran in 1979 to 1980, and I stayed in the United States ever since. I only went back 1 year in 1978. I went to high school in New Jersey. I had an uncle, may he rest in peace, Shahin Khalili, that used to take care of me. He was my guardian for the year.
In America?
In America. Anyway, after that, when the revolution happened, my parents moved to the United States in 1980, so I moved along with them. We moved to Queens. Anyway, from Queens to Long Island. Eventually, we opened our business back in Manhattan, and we've been there ever since.
So before we get to business in Manhattan, how did your parents decide finally to leave? Or what was the tipping point they had to pick up and leave? And were there any conversations before they left about...
Obviously, you had the government of Iran was replaced by an Islamic government. The future of the Jews was kind of unknown. And my dad was very much involved with the government, not in a way because of business. He was in the antique business and used to be the advisor to the Queen for her collections and for...
For antiques?
For antiques, yes.
Oh.
And he also was very involved with Israel for fundraising and, all that stuff. So he wasn't sure what would they do to a Jewish person at the time with this kind of background. So he decided to leave. He moved to London for a year because we had the residence there. So we stayed there. I even went back when my high school was finished for the summer. And again, they moved back to Iran to see if they can sell things and maybe, do things in a more, efficient way, because they left in a hurry, 1979. So they went back and they tried to maybe sell our house, which they couldn't, and they rented it to somebody. And they came back to England. I mean, they decided to go to Israel for a few months, to see if things would settle down. Everybody was thinking that the Shah is going to come back. The Shah is going to come back. If we are 45 years later, nothing has changed. So anyway, we settled in London for a while, and then we went to Israel again, back in Iran, from Iran back to Israel to come to here. Meanwhile, there was the hostage situation back, in Iran from the American embassy was invaded by the Iranian government, and they took them hostage. So President Carter canceled all the visas to all the Persians around the world. So no Iranian was, could go back to America, which had a visa. So my parents got stuck in Israel. They couldn't come to us. My brothers and my sister had already come to the States to stay with me. So they came. Eventually, they were able to get some sort of a special visa, which, Grandpa worked really hard. My dad worked very hard to get by pleading to the ambassador of, United States in Israel, and they granted him a special visa. It was the first of its kind, to come to the United States based on the humanitarian reasons. Anyway, they moved to the States with us, and right away, we started working again. We started a business.
With nothing, though.
Nope, we had to start from zero. For a person who was at the top of his game, the best of the best in his business, had to leave everything behind and start from zero. And one thing I should say, Grandpa, my dad, was this kind of a person that never looked back, never said, I had, what am I going to do now? He's just picked up where he left. It's like nothing has ever happened. And thank God, with hard work and the opportunities that was available to us in the United States, we were able to rebuild our lives. And here we are, Baruch Hashem. I get to find your mom, get married, and have 3 beautiful children, which I'm very proud of. So here we are.
Was there ever a thought when your parents were in Israel that you guys would come there, or was always that everybody was going to come because you had other family in America, so everyone was going to come to
The
America?
intention was everybody to come to us. There was we weren't going to go to Israel. We didn't have that in mind because we were already settled here. We had gone to school. I was in college. My brothers were in school. Everybody was, kind of settled as to what they want to do as young people. I was 18, 19. My brothers were 15 and 17. So there wasn't much thought about living in Israel. No, even though we loved it, but for some reason we never had that intention.
Why did most Iranians, they went to a lot of places, but why did a good majority of them come to America in particular?
Mostly for business opportunity. Life was easier here. Opportunity was much more. At least that's
what you knew.
What we thought, and for our kind of business, we were in the antique business. In Israel, there was no, it was, but 50 years ago, 45 years ago, wasn't the thing country. As much, for us. Yeah. Israel was far from a country of consuming antiques. So we needed somewhere that we can grow and get back on our feet. America was the place for us.
How long do you think it took, would you say it took for you guys to feel like you were on your feet? Like America could become home in a way?
It took quite a while. I should say it took at least 8 years, 9 years, probably 10 years before we were really solid on our feet. Still weren't close to what my dad was, back in Iran, but nevertheless, it took him 40 years to build that business, which he gave away in overnight. Here, after 10 years hard work, me and my brothers and, my dad, we got on our feet, thank God, much faster than most people would have, because Grandpa had the best name in the business, and that was his biggest treasure that he brought out of Iran. He left everything behind, but he brought his name along with him, and that helped us put us back on our feet much faster than we would have. His good name spread. Everybody wanted to do only business with him. Anybody wanted to buy something, wanted to buy it from him. Everybody wanted to sell something, wanted to sell through him. So that really made all the difference. And obviously the hard work and the land of opportunity, United States, for us made sense.
I remember I asked you once, what do you do when you have zero? And you said a good name.
Exactly. He's priceless. It's that thing nobody can take from you. They can try, but they wouldn't succeed.
True. So after 10 years or so, everyone was settled, business was settled. You said that, you told me a few weeks ago, that there was a point, even before the revolution, where you turned to your dad and you said that it was time to go elsewhere.
Right.
What was the reason for that? Why did
the reason was that Iran still was a developing country at the time. I had made a trip to the United States the summer before, and I stayed with my uncle for 3 months over the summer, and I observed around. I had a friend actually from my high school back in Iran that had moved to United States 5 years before, and I was invited to their home, and I saw their home, beautiful home back in Kings Point, one of the most influential areas in New York.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked him how much the house was worth, and he told me the house was worth about $120,000 or so, which was a lot of money at the time. And I figured that back in Iran, our house was worth almost eightfold or tenfold. And in my mind, this didn't add up. A developing country and the superpower of the world, the real estate, the comparable real estate, is 10 times more expensive in the developing country than it is in the United States. It just didn't make sense. And it wasn't sustainable, in my opinion. So I went to my dad and I said, Dad, we have all this wealth here sitting, properties, antiques, whatever. Let's sell out and go live in America. We can live much better life with less money, and we have a better future, I think. But obviously, Iran the market was so hot and so, developing faster than most places in the world. It just, it was hard to let go. And my dad being who he was at the time, he was at the top of the, his profession. It's hard just to let go and leave, and the 16-year-old's observation coming back from the United States, which is understandable. It's just like if Moses went to the Egyptians and said, the Egyptians to tell the people, come follow me to the desert. I'll go, I have a future better for you in Yerushalayim. Come with me. Obviously, not everybody went. Only 20% did. So, same kind of scenario in a way.
Going into the unknown, yeah.
Going to the unknown, whereas you had something fabulous in your hand. I mean, we were not slaves there, but prosperous business people and in every which way. And
there was no inkling that anything was going to come. Like at what point
did the indications was always there because, the country had gone through revolutions like a few years back, 20 years before. The Shah was deposed and came back, They went to exile, came back. So we always knew it's unstable, due to the political arena that we were in. Iran was always played by other, superpowers in the world. So we're one of the, pieces of the, let's say, chess set for them always. They moved us around whenever they, So it was always unstable. So that was back of my mind, our mind always, especially as Jews living in a Muslim country. The chances were always there. So, but some people acted on it more so than others. Grandpa, due to his connection to the government and the, and the Queen and everybody couldn't understand that they're going to go. He was inside the...
Felt secure.
Secure, yeah. He felt very secure. We got blindsided, I guess.
So we've had a lot of conversations about today.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, even from when I guess I made Aliyah, we started having conversations, or I maybe express my feelings of a future here versus a future elsewhere, not just for the Jewish people, but just in general, a future in America versus a future for me in Israel. And we've had some agreements and disagreements. What was it like for you when I first said that I wanted to live in Israel? Like, what were your thoughts?
Well, obviously, you have, first of all,
the personal
you're my daughter.
And the
on a personal level, you want your kids close to you. For us, it was hard to, let go of our child to go live in not a strange land, but away from us, let's say. Even though we have a lot of family and you would feel more at home there than you probably would in America, and all that feeling aside. Nevertheless, we want you to be close to us. You are, our child. And Baruch Hashem, we had something good going for us in America. We are not deprived of anything, obviously. And we felt that for you being home with us is a more secure, more better future, But having said that, we accepted your reasoning that you said you're young and you want to give it a shot for yourself to know forever, so you don't have regrets that you didn't try. So we had to, agree with you to go. You were not a child. We couldn't hold you down and said, no, you cannot go. You're a very young, mature, and smart person, and we had full confidence in you that you make the proper decision. We'll let you go. And what went through your mind as those 2 years that you were there, I don't fully know. I mean, people evolve, people change, new environment. You think you know, but you don't, So, and obviously I remember that you telling me before the war that you've decided to come back. You had your own reasons. We didn't get too much of that detail, but then the war broke out 2 weeks later.
Yeah. 2 days later.
And then you came to us. Obviously, it was very disturbing times, in all our lives. Still is, This is one of the reasons, I think, making Aliyah to Israel. It's not an easy decision. It's not a yes or no decision. It's not. I think there's a lot of things involved. First of all, I believe personally, as far as people want to make Aliyah or not, to make that decision, I think Israel's Jewish people in general in the world, our diversity is our strength. I don't believe that we should all be in one place. At least not now. Just as our strength as Jewish people is that our different sects of Judaism that we have, it's all good and dandy. If all the same, no. Our strength is the different people who we are, the way we do things, different. But at the same token, we're all one. Nevertheless, the same as living in different parts of the world, I think. We need to be spread a little bit here and there. I think we have more strength that way. But with the focus on Israel, our hearts should always be there. Our support should always be there, because that's our main strength, as we can see now. Had we not had this government, the Israel right now, to support us, the Jews wouldn't have been able to survive, probably, as we are today. That is our main strength. At the same token, if you didn't have people in America to support in the Senate, in the government, to push the government to help Israel, imagine without them, what would we have done? Or different places around the world, it just goes hand to hand. Judaism and Israel, all the same thing. We all pray differently sometimes, Ashkenazis, Sephardis. I don't know what other sects we can talk about.
Mizrahi, if you want to
Mizrahi,
get really
whatever. We are Mizrahi.
Yeah.
We are fully Mizrahis, But in a way, we should all respect each other at the same time, and remember at the end of the day that we're all one. And we shouldn't wait for our enemy to remind us of that every time, that we are one nevertheless. And that's our main strength. Remembering that even though we respect each other, the way that we pray, the different way that we do things, secular, I don't know, Orthodox.
Wherever you fall.
Wherever you fall, doesn't matter. As long as you are a Jew, don't ever forget, we're all one. Every once in a while, the history, somebody rises and the enemy reminds us that we are. Because they don't care, your enemy doesn't care if you pray 3 times a day, you don't. If you're conservative, if you're orthodox, if you're absolutely secular, whatever, they don't care. To them, you're a Jew, and they're going to treat you as one enemy. So we should always remember to be one. And the same way, we could all live in different parts of the world. But at the same token, we have to remember our heart is in Jerusalem. We need to support it. We need to support Israel.
What's your thought on if collectively, because I hear the argument, but sometimes I think to myself, and I've had conversations about this, that we always have this argument, okay, so we should be everywhere so we can bring our support from everywhere.
Yes.
But if we were all really in Israel or trying to really, with their heart and mind, make Israel home, whether or not you're doing it today or in 5 years or in 10 years, you know you're making it home. So the investment that you put into that place is different. As much as you and I can sit here and say we care about Israel and we support Israel, you know it's important, when you don't live there, the investment in the infrastructure, the investment in the place is different than when it is physically your home and physically the place where you need to make sure your children are safe, you need to make sure that everything is there so that you can have a future, et cetera, et cetera. That's just the truth of the matter. As much as we can sit here and say we care from the outside looking in, when you're on the outside, you're on the outside. So what about the fact that if everybody was understanding really, oh, that actually is home, that actually is where we're going to end up, or we need to end up, so our investment would look different, and then Israel's landscape would look different, and then maybe you wouldn't have to depend on America and Europe and all these other places that we call home, so we also have to protect and make sure are okay, in addition to making sure Israel's first, but there's still these other things, and we need these other things to then make sure Israel's okay. How do you reconcile that? Like, our heart, as much as we can say our hearts are in Israel, if it's not your primary place, if it's not really where you're looking to be, so your investment is going to look different. That's just the truth of the matter of human nature.
Well,
for the majority of humans.
Let me tell you something. Sometimes when you live in a place, it's more challenging than being outside and think about it. You know what I mean? And you probably would support Israel more if you're outside, believe it or not, opposite than what you think while you're living in Israel. Because in Israel, when you live there, life is just about life anymore. It's not all about Israel as much. You have to go to work every day, you have challenges, you have things that go wrong, you know, all the other things, you know, interactions. You don't feel it. Sometimes from outside you feel more than while you're inside. So I think we definitely need that outside, for sure. Because, you know, Jewish people being together all the time is not also healthy either. Because, you know, as you know, we Jewish people, we have all... You ask a question from a Jewish person, you get, you know, you ask for 2 people, you get 5 different answers, you know. Just like the joke that the guy says was stranded in an island and he builds 2 synagogues. And they tell him why. He says, one that I go to and one that I don't go to. So it is what it is. I think the Jewish people, you know, also... One of the reasons we can coexist and exist the way we are is because we are far a little bit from each other. We have different opinions, you know. We do things differently. We live in different parts of the world, with different cultures. You know, makes us more colorful. All in one, I'm not so sure if the world is ready for that, or we're ready for that. You know.
How do we get ready for that?
I don't know. If I had the answer, I'll tell you. I'm not smart enough or I don't know enough to answer that question. Honestly, I mean, whatever I'm saying is the way I feel now today, and this is what I think. But who am I? I can only think of my own, you know, little world. But the answer is, you know, definitely not within my reach at this point.
I have one other question, maybe one more is going to come to mind, but I asked you, you mentioned that you said to your father that you think it was time to go or whatever for opportunity, also maybe seeing like underpinnings of what was happening in being in an Islamic regime or an Islamic country that had the potential of a revolution or what have you. And I think I've come to you maybe several times in the past few years with the same concerns.
Yes, about the United States having the same kind of...
Not the same, different, but just kind of looking at history and saying, okay, this is what history has looked like for the Jewish
Right.
people for thousands of years, and we don't have to go so far back. We can look at Eastern Europe, right, and that whole sect of Jewry, and then we can look at the Middle East, all of the Middle East, not just Iran, Iraq, Syria, Yemen, Egypt, all of these places. There's no Jews left.
Yes.
And yes, we're in America, we're in the new age, quote unquote, but those were all always the new age, the new thing, right? Europe was the new age, and no one thought anything would happen in Europe, right? Majority of people didn't.
Well,
So why do you feel like the circumstance today is different than all these other times?
Today we have a state. We never did.
State of Israel.
State of Israel.
And how does that
That
change
kind of
us over
synonym.
here?
How that changes? We are supported by them. You know, we have somewhere to go to if need be. Where we had before, we didn't have anywhere to go to, and we didn't really have any. You know, we didn't have an army. We didn't have. You know, we were so vulnerable. Today we are not as vulnerable because of the state of Israel, and I think it's an absolute fact. I'm not saying that nothing could happen. Anything could happen.
Things are
But
happening.
the odds are. What is happening today, in my opinion, yes, all the anti-Semitism that you see, in a way, right now, it's always been there.
Well, anyhow,
It's nothing new, nothing. Those people who have anti-Semitism, anti-Semitic
feelings.
they've always had. It's something, you know, they grow up with. You're not going to take that away. And the fact that you see it now is, in a way, better for us to see what we're dealing with. And I think a lot of the anti-Semitism that you see today is like monkey see, monkey do, copycat thing. Most
That's
of
how
these people
things
are just
start.
saying,
That's how
I
revolutions
understand,
start.
I understand. But there's always, you see, you can always look at the negative things in life, yes. But there's also positive. There's a lot of good people. There's a lot of good information at the same time. There's a lot of people who are against this, and they had, you know, they can see that this is wrong. You know? And maybe that will change those people and strengthen their beliefs in peace and harmony with everybody else and with the Jewish people. You know? They can see that we are not aggressive people unless we're poked. We answer. We don't get up and attack people for no reason. We are a peaceful country. We have full democracies. In my opinion, Israel's democracy is the #1 democracy in the world. Even better than the United States. We have proper checks and balances. Everybody gets the same treatment. Even the president gets, you know, just like here. But in Israel, even worse. Even the president is not immune to, you know, to making mistakes or doing wrong things. It's fair and square for everybody. And they have respect for every type of person. Doesn't matter how you feel, you know, who you are, you get the same respect. We have, which country in the world that has, you know, lives with a minority of their own enemies?
Right.
Where? We have almost 2 million Muslims live in Israel. 2 million, and then we have 2.3 that lived in Gaza right next to us, and then we had the other guys there. Which country in the world has that? All the Arab Israelis have the same exact right as the Jewish Israeli, no less, sometimes even more.
Right. There's no question that we know and we understand that we're doing the right thing and we're saying the right truth. Ultimately, though, our enemies...
So maybe some people in the world
still
didn't know
wanna-
that. As much as you see a lot of the anti-Semitism coming out, now that people are talking about it, a lot of people who didn't know also see that.
The other side.
The other side.
The positive side.
You know, just as much as the negative is coming out, the positive is coming out. And hopefully the right people would connect to the right decision. You know, that's one thing that everybody looks at the negative. Okay, the world is ending. They're going to kill us all tomorrow. No. Maybe this is just the opposite. Maybe the world will see who we are. You know, and believe in us. I wouldn't be surprised if people, you know, non-Jews at some point move to Israel.
I did see a non-Jew quote. He's a big influencer. He was named Nate Buzz, and he said that he would rather be a foreigner in Israel than a citizen in his own home
There
country.
you go.
It's true.
I mean, I'm not saying
but-
that everybody's going to turn that way.
No, but
Don't forget, in the world, quantity is very important. I mean, the rest of the world has critical mass, against us, because there are millions of billions of them. There's only millions of us.
We're hoping that good prevails, unlike every other time in history,
Always
that
does.
people wake up.
The humanity always
Well, it's a question
survives
at what
because
cost?
why?
It's a question at what cost?
There's always a cost. There's no free lunches. There's always a cost.
No free
But as long as, as long as humanity survives, the reason the humanity survives is because there's more good than bad. The good prevails. If the bad was to prevail, there would be no any world. The existence of the world itself is a testament that there's more good than bad in the world. And I like to be in that camp of thought, that there's more good, not to be negative. Be positive, and hopefully positive will follow.
So keep doing the good thing, fighting the good fight,
Fight?
and Hashem will take care of the rest.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Amen.
Thanks, Pops.
Thank you.
Okay. Till next time, we'll do a part 2.
Okay.
If the crowd wants it.
Okay, I'm not sure.
Thanks for listening to another episode of My Israel Narrative. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to follow along and subscribe. Until next time, I'm Yisrael Chai.